What's up, everybody? Couch Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down 2 characters for an easy rank up on each role. So no matter what role you're playing, whether it's tank, DPS, or support, we got a character that you can pick up, learn really easily, and start to dominate your rank and easily get that rank up. So do yourself a favor, watch it to the end, smash the like and subscribe, and go to the GameLeap website right now for our special 50% off sale. Use the special offer to get exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, including in-depth advanced VOD reviews, tips and tricks, and hero guides. We got it all on the GameLeap website, so do yourself a favor, go check it out right now before you miss out. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, these are going to be characters that all you have to do is master this one fundamental thing that I'm going to break down, this one playstyle of each of these characters, and you're going to be able to climb. And that's as simple as it is, because these type of playstyles are so intrinsically powerful. They're going to give you a guaranteed amount of value in your games, and you're going to be able to rank up no matter what rank you're in. Now, let's talk about the tanks first. Like I said, tanks are the frame or the building blocks of any composition, and these 2 tanks have the power to solo carry your games as long as you play them in this particular way. Now, first off, let's talk about Zarya. Now, the thing that you need to understand about Zarya is the playstyle that you play on Zarya is going to be fundamentally different depending on who your other character is, your other tank in particular, or certain DPS, depending on the situation. Now, at a base level, everyone knows how to play Zarya with a Reinhardt, right? You bubble the Reinhardt, he goes in, you get charged, you rinse and repeat as you go in, you have cycles of Zarya, and you build up a lot of energy, and then you just zap things on the front line. But that's not the way that ranked plays out a lot of the time, and really, there are other ways to get value out of Zarya, even if you can't guarantee your tank to consistently go in and consistently get you charged. One of the most reliable ways to get charged with Zarya is to actually just counter what the enemy is trying to do. If they're trying to CC your wrecking ball, wait for them to do it and then bubble them out. If they are hooking one of your teammates, you just wait and you just literally just save your bubble until a hook goes off. You save that person, and not only can you usually turn the tables on that Roadhog, but you'll get a lot of charge in the process. Now, that being said, while I say there's a lot of different ways to play Zarya, I wanted to talk about one playstyle in particular that is very powerful in solo queue, and that is the flank or off-angle Zarya. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, whoa. Flanking, off-angling on Zarya, aren't you just going to die? Well, you might, but here's the thing. If you get a decent amount of energy and you engage the enemy by surprise when you have your basic bubble, you can usually burst down a target using your bubble to not only finish them off, but run away. Imagine you're playing King's Row, for instance, and your team is pushing that front line. All of a sudden, you push through the left in Hotel, you flank a support, you start to beam them down, and towards the end of your beam, you actually use your right click or your alternate fire and a melee, and even if they turn on you, you use your self bubble, and towards the end of your self bubble, you back away. You could have easily put pressure on the enemy team from the side, and that could be a way that you actually get a really easy kill on the enemy. Very powerful strategy on Zarya, but you got to make sure that you master your timing, because usually you want to do it while the enemy is distracted. You only need a moment, and enemies can't really stop you if you have that bubble. The higher the charge, though, the more successful these flanks are going to go, because you're going to be able to actually kill the enemy before enemies have time to react. Now, the next character I really wanted to talk about, or the last character in the tanking category, is the actual opposite character that I was talking about you countering on Zarya, and that's Roadhog. Now, just like with Zarya, Roadhog, the way you play him is going to be very different depending on what the enemy team has. There are some characters that can shut down Roadhog exceptionally well. The big characters that you gotta watch out for are specifically Ana and other Roadhogs. These are the 2 ones that can be a really big deal. CC in general can be a pretty big deal for Roadhog, but most of them are going to be far enough away that they won't affect you that bad. Like, you can stay outside of the effective range of a McCree flash, but staying outside of the effective range of a Roadhog hook can be very difficult, and a lot of times you could even hook that Roadhog, but if he gets pilled and you don't, you're gonna die. So it's a very risky matchup, and Ana is very similar in that way, where she can just nade you or sleep you and you're just gonna die as well. But if you notice that the enemy team doesn't have these type of characters, a flank Roadhog style can be absolutely oppressive. Like, imagine if the enemy team has characters like Genji and Echo and Rhine, and they can't chase you down very easily, and if a Genji tries to chase you down or an Echo tries to chase you down, you could easily survive that. They can't stop your breather, you can jiggle behind natural cover, and it's a liability for them to chase you without cooldowns because you could just hook them. So Roadhog can really exist in the backline. He can get a lot of value out of really easy hooks when enemies aren't paying attention to him. He can easily displace enemies where he just hooks them, turns his camera, drags them up against the wall, and puts them really outside of the LOS of their healers while he also body blocks them. Flank Hog can be one of the most impactful types of playstyles on Hog or pretty much any character in the game, but you just gotta make sure that enemies aren't really being actively prepared for you. A lot of times, if enemies have Roadhogs or Honors or constantly are watching the flank, it might be better to just play with your team, but the second they're caught lacking, or maybe you get a couple picks on the enemy team, you can use flank Roadhog to definitively stagger the enemy team, or just completely catch them off guard, racking up kills in the process. Then we're going to the next type of characters that I wanted to break down in this video, and that's the DPS. And I got two characters in the DPS category that are very, very good and are going to bring you a lot of intrinsic value if you incorporate these strategies that I'm going to break down. First off, let's talk about Reaper, who's a character that is also getting a buff soon because he was on the experimental patch. I expect that buff to come down the pipeline very, very soon, which makes him actually way more effective at mid-range duels, but a little bit less effective at bursting down tanks from close range, which is something he was already good at. Overall, it's going to be a pretty nice buff to Reaper, especially in dueling other DPS and supports. Now, the super underrated strategy that I think you should incorporate on Reaper to get an easy rank up is the surprise drop strategy, or the drop trooper strategy, or the drop dive strategy. I don't even know what to call it, but it's basically when you're on defense somewhere and all you're doing is holding some high ground. You're literally just holding some high ground. Like, let's say Temple of Anubis right on second point. You're just holding that little pillar. You're hidden. You're not peeking at all. Or there are a million different scenarios where you can hold any high ground on defense. You're just holding up there perched, but you're not peeking the enemy. All you have to do is either 1, wait for an enemy tank to come back for peel, or 2, wait until the enemy is pushed up enough to where there's someone isolated in the back. The thing is, if you can drop on an enemy, you can basically get them to half health incredibly easily with one shot, and before they even realize that they're dead, and then you just wraith away or even teleport right back up to the high ground. You can change it up depending on what characters the enemy have, because sometimes the characters are not even going to be able to chase you. Like, you could drop on, kill a soldier, and maybe there's like a Lucio right next to him. Instantly, you teleport it back up to the high ground, and you just like got a kill and left. This is very powerful because you essentially use the high ground as a form of dive mobility, where you don't see the enemy completely hidden, and then out of nowhere, boom, they're at half. Out of nowhere, boom, they're dead. And sometimes, especially if you time this correctly, you can turn that one kill into another, really collapse on with your teammates that are fighting on the front line, and after you kill that support, that pivotal support, the enemy team isn't going to get the peel that they need, and usually the entire team just evaporates right there. Very powerful strategy to incorporate, and it's really good on any defensive point with high ground. Let's say Hanamura second defense, Temple of Anubis first and second defense. I mean, the list goes on and on. There are a lot of places to get value out of this drop Reaper strategy. Now moving on to the second or the last DPS that we got to cover in this video, and it's Hanzo. And Hanzo is a character that can be pretty difficult. A lot of people have some trouble learning his mechanical skill, or the mechanical skill on Hanzo, because it's a lot different than a lot of other characters. Now, that being said, there are ways to abuse Hanzo even if you don't have phenomenal aim. The overall best way to abuse Hanzo is just to abuse his Storm Arrow and the fact that you can really burst down tanks. You don't want to just spam your Storm Arrow, which is something that I see a lot of people do where they just waste it. They just use it right off the bat on cooldown. Typically, you want to save it to try to really burst down shields, burst down tanks, and just pump out a ton of damage, put some pressure on the enemy. Of course, when you're further away, you can spam it, but as you're getting closer, it's a great way to really punish tanks and just do a ton of damage out of nowhere. Now, a lot of the time, one of the big problems I see on Hanzo is people are far too aggressive with their positioning. They really want to get in, they're missing some of these long range shots, and they're like, I just need to get closer and I can hit these shots, but then they they put themselves in danger up against other characters. Hanzo is all about the numbers. Remember, every single projectile shot is never going to be guaranteed. It's always a percentile. Unless you're literally point blank, percentiles won't always hit because there's travel time and enemies can move while an arrow is traveling, so it's never going to be 100%. That being said, if you spam long enough and you're consistent enough, you will eventually hit some shots and get some kills. But if your position is trash and you die, I mean, you can't get any more kills after that. So what I would really suggest is playing more towards the back of your team, not necessarily right up front with your main tank or whatever, playing a little bit isolated towards the back, spamming consistent shots, not rushing anything, and not sacrificing your positioning for trying to get some easy damage when that actually subjects you to enemies like Genji, for instance, or a million other enemies that can make a play on you because you're playing way too close when you don't really need to. Having a lot of open space between you and the enemy gives you much more time to outplay them if they ever want to make a play on you. If they have to cross the open space, whether it be a Tracer or a Doomfist, Genji, Echo, even a Wrecking Ball, you have more time to put damage in them from afar, and you have your lunge to where you're gonna consistently win these matchups far more than if they don't have to travel through open space at all, and instead of you getting multiple shots to attempt to kill them on their way to you, you don't get any shots at all, and they're already on top of you and you're already like at half health. Now moving on to the last but certainly not least characters in the game, we got the supports, and I got two supports for you for really easy rank ups. Now first off, we gotta talk about Ana. Now Ana can be pretty skill intensive. She's a very mechanically demanding character, and a lot of the time, I suggest being very proactive with your abilities, you know, healing up your targets when you need to, but trying to find proactive plays, which is something I preach a lot on this channel, but I don't really want to talk about that in this scenario. I'm going to talk about a different playstyle that is similar, but specifically different. Now, what you're going to do with this playstyle is mainly in the start of the fight, you're just going to try to build your ult as quickly as possible. This is going to work far better if you have some sort of tank that needs a lot of heal, something like Winston, Ryan, Sigma, and you're just nading them, pocketing them, getting that nano as fast as possible. Now, what you're gonna do after you build that nano, because you can build this incredibly quickly, is you're gonna make an aggressive nade play, perhaps an aggressive sleep play, and an aggressive nano all at once. You're basically combining your entire kit to really give you momentum into the enemy team. Because the fact that your nano actually heals your main tank, for instance, what you could do is you could take like an off angle, like an aggressive off angle. Your tank goes in, and normally they would need heals and a lot of focus for you, but you could temporarily use your nano to kind of supplement that while you try to make an aggressive play with your nade. And if there's a nanoed main tank and multiple targets naded on the enemy team, that's just gonna be a lot of kills for your team. And you can set this play up all by yourself, but you don't just go right off the bat trying to make aggressive plays. You try to build up this ultimate faster than anyone on the enemy team, and you just use it right off the bat. The trick is to do it as quickly as possible, because the reason that you do this is you don't want to give enemies any time to build up ultimates. You want to make sure that this is the first ultimate off, and maybe whatever main tank you have, whether it's Sigma, whether it's Ryan, Orisa, Winston, or whatever, they use your nano that you got really fast because you tried to get it fast. They use that to build up their ultimate, and that could be a way that you give your Ryan, you know, you get that nade play off, you nano your Ryan, or maybe you sleep a target, you nano your Ryan gets a pin off, he gets his shatter, and then he just rolls the enemy team. And because he got his shatter so fast, the enemy team didn't have any ultimates ready for y'all, and even if they did, because they hesitated, the fight's already over. And that can be one of the strongest things to do on Ana, just to win that first early team fight incredibly quickly and then build up ultimate for the rest of your team. Now the last character I'm going to talk about in the supporting category goes a completely different direction, and it's Moira. Now I think Moira gets a lot of flack for being a character that people say, hey, doesn't require as much mechanical skill, so obviously it's inferior. But that's not true at all. We all know that Moira can be an amazing character in the right hands, and you gotta really think about what makes Moira so special up against some of the other support options, especially if you're playing like solo queue, for instance. Well, for one, Moira doesn't really need peel to the same extent that other supports do. Not only can she heal herself, but she has a get out of jail free card in her Fade. Now, the thing about her Fade is it could also be used aggressively, and this is the playstyle that I'm really gonna suggest, even though it might get me some flack. There are gonna be certain scenarios where you can pivot on Moira and play aggressively, and there are certain characters that you can abuse with DPS Moira. Now, you might be saying, what the hell, Mills? Everyone's gonna flame me. Well, maybe, but you gotta make sure that you're doing your healing job, of course, but you gotta also remember that there are certain DPS that absolutely hate dealing with a Moira that just randomly will fly in their face out of nowhere. Imagine a Genji that thinks he's safe because he has his reflect. Well, he's not very safe up against you. Imagine a McCree that doesn't have his stun, but you just all of a sudden get up in his face, you're crouch spamming all on top of him. 99% of McCrees, unless you're at a very high rank, will not be able to hit the shot. Now, make sure that you're not jumping. You want to actually keep your feet planted. That's a big problem with Moiras. A lot of Moiras love to jump for some reason, and it makes it really easy for hit scans and projectiles like Hanzo to shut you down. But it's just really important for you to understand that Moira has this unique ability to pivot and punish enemies that normal supports wouldn't be able to chase you, right? If you're like an Ana and a Genji comes on top of you, you might do a little bit of damage to him, he does a little bit of damage to you, and he runs around the corner. Can you chase him? No, you can't chase him. There's no world where you can chase him because he could just be waiting there and you don't even have mobility to catch him, but Moira can. And if you learn to time this correctly, you can really like mix in these little punishes for enemy DPS that get a little bit too greedy, and it can be a really amazing skill to tap into on Moira. So I wanted to break it down in this video. But go to the GameLeap website in the links down below for so much exclusive content that you can only get at the GameLeap website. And right now, with our special 50% off sale, you can get it at a fraction of the cost. So do yourself a favor, go check it out in the links down below. But I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for coming by. Ask me any questions in the comments down below. I'm Coach Mills, and see you next time.